All right, everyone, welcome to Inside the Lab, the PGA edition. I am Brian. I'm joined by Colin Davey. Yeah, there you are, Colin. How's it going, man?
Hey, how's it going? Just looking over the latest weather conditions, and it is a doozy of alignment between ownership, weather, chalk, all of that stuff. We're going to get into all of it, but unsurprising to most of us, weather's going to be the number one thing here, just like it was last year.
Yep, definitely going to be a factor this year. So let's jump in. Thanks for joining us, everyone. You can definitely keep the chat rolling. We threw this show up a couple hours ago just to have it rolling so people could jump in and chat. It looks like the chat's been going here for a little bit, so that's good. So keep on chatting. We'll definitely get to some of your questions at the end of the show. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we're going to jump in and talk about all this stuff, new ownership projections, because they have updated over the last couple days. Definitely some line movement, and then weather is going to be really important as well. All right, let's see here. All right, so I got my screen up here. We have Colin Davey model. I will say that if you are using one of the pro models, whatever it may be, like if you're open and you want to go to pro model, a lot of these do have weighted course adjusted round. Collins has 10 out of the 100 points on course adjusted round. Obviously, there's no course form because the British Open does rotate courses on a 10-year cycle. So definitely make sure if you use a pro model, definitely bump something up that you think is more important. Long-term adjusted rounds always a good one to give extra exposure to, but you don't want to waste your points here. So, all right, let's start with the weather, Colin, because I think that's what everyone wants to talk about. That's what everyone wants to deal with. I have the wind pulled up here because I think this is really going to be the main thing. And I guess the problem is that this sort of keeps on shifting the more that we check on it. So right now it was, you can see here that really all throughout the early morning and really the early afternoon, late morning, early afternoon, it looks like we're going to have these high gust, high winds. But I mean, weather's just so volatile. It has changed even over the last day multiple times that Colin, what you were doing with weather. I know that normally when things, they're hard to predict. We usually, deal with them by, not really taking that hard of a stance and trying to deal with the volatility. So I'm sort of having trouble figuring out what I want to do here. And maybe the answer is nothing.
No, I don't think you can afford to do nothing this time. So, I understand that weather changes a lot, like over the last day, but like now that we're, less than especially for Friday, since we're just around 24 hours out, these weather forecasts are pretty stable by this point.
Mm-hmm.
And the page you have open now is pretty much what I'm going off of with weather.
Yeah.
The absolute death window is right around like between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Friday.
Sure.
And that's when the gusts are going to be the highest, probably around 30. And so the ideal spot really is if you can get anybody that starts just after that. And like the Open does have some pretty late starting tee times. They're teeing off as late as how late are they going in this one? The last group goes out at 4 p.m. on Friday, which is definitely up there.
Yeah.
There are a couple people in a couple groups that will tee off after that death window. Compounding that is there's a bunch of rain right after they're right around that period. So I don't think they're going. I mean, it's maybe like half an inch total on Friday that they're going for, but I don't think they'll cancel any rounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that will probably soften up the greens a little bit. I think your best bet, if you're just trying to figure out who's going to do well, it's probably if you can pick guys after the 2 p.m. window on Friday, that's going to be your best bet.
So that would be early Thursday morning, guys. So if you're in the models and you sort by tee times here, these are Eastern time because I'm in Eastern time, not local time. So that's sort of why you might see a difference there. If you look at like PGAtour.com or something and see local times, they obviously start at like 6 or 7 a.m. But if you just sort, earlier numbers are better. So these would be the guys here that would be going early Thursday morning and then getting into the later Friday afternoon tee time. So these are your sort of sweet spot golfers here, Colin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that looks around the sweet spot. And there's some names in there for sure.
But that's the problem is there's some names, Colin, but a lot of them are not necessarily, some of the chalk and some of the really good players are not exactly in there. Like we do have some early guys, Matsuyama, Stenson, Spieth, Fleetwood. They're going like fairly early. I mean, definitely not.
No, I mean, yeah, that'll be enough. If you double check back on like the actual tee times for PGA, like all the names that you described, like Rose, Thomas, Koepka, Matsuyama, even Fleetwood to a lesser degree, they're all going to be in the sweet spot.
So how do you think this is affecting ownership? Because I still see especially with the odds movement today, I mean, Ricky is now the odds on favorite with Spieth at 6.7 and at that 9.2 price tag. I mean, he's obviously the most touted golfer in the entire industry by like 30 times over. So, I mean, he's obviously going to have just massive ownership. But I mean, other guys too, that don't necessarily have very good tee times. I mean, Sergio is going to be really popular. Adam Scott's going to be really popular. Paul Casey. And these are all guys that are like in that pretty bad window. So do you think this is going to adjust ownership, or you think that there's just a really big edge for us?
I think it'll be somewhere in between. I think that some of the big names of people we're already going to have high ownership. And so I think Matsuyama, like for my pound for pound, is actually probably going to be number one owned overall. I see
really.
Oh yeah, I think over Ricky for sure. I think the weather is going to be the ones that push him over the edge. For those asking why did Matsuyama jump to the top overall, he's easily the most touted over all the over the industry over this past week. Which is kind of disappointing because I know we talked a lot about him on Monday and how excited I was to play him, but apparently everybody else, everybody else is on the same page.
He was the picture of my breakdown today. He was going to be the guy that I was going to go him and I was really going to play the weather angle, and I was sort of baiting you early on because I do believe in the weather angle for sure. Yeah, I mean that trio of like Matsuyama, Spieth, and Rose, like those studs that have early draw times and sort of have been playing well recently and really set up as far as being ball strikers. That seemed to be like the trio to build around and to fade some of these high price studs and the highly owned studs. But that's sort of discouraging that Matsuyama. Well, what are your thoughts on like a guy like Rose or I guess Spieth is probably going to be fairly popular?
Yeah, I think they're all going to be super popular, and there's no way, this is what makes it really tough because, we try to keep ownership low. If you still insist on playing them anyway, because you think they're the only ones that have a prayer of winning with these weather conditions, you're going to have to differentiate somewhere else and just get someone like really else at super low ownership elsewhere. So it's tough. I always want to look for reasons to go live ownership, to go super low ownership, but these weather conditions are just not cooperating.
So in the chat, we leading up to it, there was a lot of talk about what to do with Ricky. In the breakdown today, Colin, I said that just at his projected ownership level, and I think Adam Scott was probably in this ballpark during the U.S. Open because of his cheap price. I think Ricky might be right there as well. Almost a must play in cash games because of just the equity that he gives you at 9.2, but almost a must fade in the Millie Maker. But I've seen some people just say that he has so much equity that you can eat the chalk. I'm not sure if I agree with that. But if I was to handicap the ownership and I set it at 30, what would you take?
For Ricky?
Yeah.
Probably in the Millie Maker?
Yeah.
Under for sure.
You take under? Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's really tough for anybody to crack 30 in a major just because pricing is so cheap across the board and you can make super teams.
Interesting. So I'm going to, let's pull up what it was at the U.S. Open, just like the highest owned guys, just to give a handicap. So 618, let's go to our ownership page here. And we'll go back to 618. So your guess would be under, I can't remember. So I guess the highest guy, Adam Scott in the Millie Maker did get up to 25. He was obviously higher owned in the smaller tournaments. But yeah, I guess this sort of goes with your theory here. But I would say that I'm not sure anyone like is at a like he's the odds-on favorite at 9-2. Have we ever seen that before in DFS golf?
Yeah, sometimes you get super chalky people. I mean, like sometimes we've seen like lesser known spots like the Puerto Rico Open when
But they were 9-2.
Yeah, like I mean, it's not too. So I mean, like it doesn't matter if we haven't seen it before. Like I believe that like that's absolutely happening. So like
yeah. That's fair. Okay, interesting. Let me go back to our player models here. So yeah, let's go through some of these other guys because I'm really curious now that we have ownership. And you're right, it is pretty distributed. We do have Matsuyama here at the top of 21-25. And then as we might expect, Ricky, Adam Scott, I think Paul Casey's especially going to be pretty chalky as well. But I mean, there are some guys that surprised me a little bit, Con, and I wanted your thoughts. You know, if we look at like a guy like Molinari, he was like one of the top 5 highest owned guys in the U.S. Open because he was at 7K. Now he is at 7.3. He does have a tough draw here in terms of the weather, but you know, it's still really good long-term metrics. It's a guy who's really accurate off the tee and not really any more expensive than he was in the U.S. Open. And now he's 5 to 8%. So do you think that's a little low, or do you really think that he might be a contrarian pick this week?
No, I don't think. I think he is. He does lean more contrarian. So much of this ownership is driven by how much people talk about him, and nobody's talking about Molinari this week, for better or for worse. I think that's a mistake. I think all the love went to Matt Kuchar instead, pretty much.
Yeah. Because Matt Kuchar is 17 to 20.
Yeah. So that's where touts are going to be driving ownership. Those are I think Molinari makes a really easy pivot from all of those guys. And the course sets up really well for him. So it's kind of a head scratcher, but
do you think Molinari is a better just play period, not factoring in any ownership or anything?
Like even if it's not like better, it's like I think Kuchar has a little bit more equity, but like not by a whole lot. I think Molinari is a pretty perfect play for the Millie Maker.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Let's see here. All right. So what do you think is the sort of the best way to maybe create some contrarian lineups for the Millie Maker? You know, like if some of these guys are going to be so high owned, whether it's Matsuyama, Adam Scott, or whatever, like the strategy that we sort of identified in the U.S. Open, Colin, and ended up working out, but I don't want to get too results oriented, was that we really thought that dipping below a lot of the guys that were going to have the high ownership was the way to go. And we even said that Brooks Koepka might be the guy to build around. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on sort of just building around guys that are a little bit lower in the value? I mean, the 8K range is always pretty interesting, like the high 7, 8K range, just because there's not many guys. So like Adam Scott, Paul Casey are going to be super popular, but then we have other guys that we know are talented. You know, Justin Thomas doesn't seem to fit the course, but we do have like a guy like Mark Leishman who does seem to fit the course really well. He's a really good links player, not a great wind draw, but it seems like a lot of these guys could be some of the lower owned guy. Like if you're just sort of like looking at talent versus ownership, it seems like there might be a pretty good amount of equity in this range.
Yeah, I think the only problem with going balanced this time is just like to get within like a decent price range and still have equity, the guys that like are going to be most cornerstones are like Matsuyama and Fowler, and who are going to be the chalk of the field. That just wasn't the case in the U.S. Open, where you had like those 9K guys just sucking up all of the equity. You could arguably go the opposite route, where there are a lot of people that are essentially going to get priced out of their ownership. I think one of your favorite kind of parlor questions is, who is the most expensive player that we're going to have with single-digit ownership? My guess for that is arguably Jason Day. And that low ownership is there for a reason. I don't know if I'd play him, but like in terms of crazier things to happen to win a Millionaire Maker, like it still is Jason Day. And if there's anybody who has the pedigree to just like bust out of nowhere and return to form, it's going to be one of those like, oh, you're going to kick yourself for not having more of him, like when you know that he's going to be at 8% or something like that.
Rory. Yeah, Rory might be pretty low owned too. And it's like if you're ever going to get Rory low owned,
Yeah, I think, yeah, the problem, like I mean, normally, like, this is actually a pretty good spot, like, just by the numbers to like load up on like some of the big three, like DJ, Rory, and Day. I just think there are so many problems with all three of those that aren't reflected in the data. DJ
Yeah.
with personal stuff, Rory with a potential injury, and Day with who knows what, like where his head's at. So I don't know. There's probably some subjective adjustments there that make those guys a little bit more unplayable.
Yeah.
But if you want to go just like by pure number and go like super high risk, like I think those are the guys that are going to be too expensive for everyone else, which is
Yeah.
not the U.S. Open.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that is a good point. It is sort of weird that like there's a pretty clear like we know who the best golfers in the world, and some of them aren't like in great form right now. DJ and specifically Rory, whether that's related to his clubs change or whatever it might be. But yeah, like all of these guys that are like we know that they're the best golfers in the world, and they're going to be low owned. It's just sort of a weird dynamic, and you're right. We might be looking back on this come Monday morning and say, "Wow, I had Rahm at 7% ownership, and I faded him in lieu of a less talented golfer because of fit or because of whatever." So definitely, I mean, it's hard to win $1 million for sure. Connor, I want to talk about some of these guys in the lower range because I think this is an interesting week in that there's so much excess value here in the 6K range. A lot of people were on Snedeker. If you hadn't seen, he had to withdraw from the tournament. So if you had him, get him out. And I'm assuming that a lot of people are going to pivot to a lot of these guys that are going to be highly owned. Steve Stricker, obviously coming off a really good round. He did have to play at the John Deere. Rafa Cabrera Bello seems to be like the really easy pivot off of Snedeker. So I think that his ownership might jump up a little bit. But who do you think is going to be the chalk in this range? I think I asked you this on the pod. Do you think because there's so many that it'll keep everyone's ownership down?
I mean, it'll dilute everyone's ownership. You're still going to get some pretty chalky people. If I had to go, if like say like 7-2, I mean 7-2 and under, let's just so I can get that Kuchar in there. I think Kuchar is going to be like easily
the highest, yeah.
Like the highest of all of those guys.
Yeah.
Past that, like I think Stricker, Rafa, probably Berger, who has a good result that isn't priced in, is going to be up there for that reason.
Yeah.
And then, I think those guys are all. And then the other guy, just like on the strength of Tout Rex, is probably Andy Sullivan, who got like just enough recommendations. I think people like the home country angle a little bit.
Sure.
I don't really see that. I mean, it's fine, but I just don't see him justifying like anything above 2% ownership, much less like the 8 that I think he's going to garner.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, so what are you doing with some of these guys that are coming from the John Deere? We know we talked on the pod and I referenced in the breakdown, Jake Nichols, friend of the pod. He was on the pod actually, did a study where he saw that John Deere guys were about a stroke less productive historically the week after from playing at the John Deere as opposed to guys that the Scottish. But I mean, how do you deal with that? You just deal with it in like your exposure. Like if you were going to have Berger in 20%, maybe dump them down to, only have them at 15%. Cause I mean like that's a good stat. Like they're a stroke less, productive, but how do you actually deal with that when making lineups? Do you just not take Deere guys or do you just bump them down in exposure or what's going on?
I think you could, I think your best bet is to try to like dump them down into exposure or just like I don't know, like manual adjustments. You can always like pull the data out and just kind of like swap guys like willy-nilly if you want. Some combination of exposure or just manual adjustments to the numbers, whatever's easiest for you guys. But I do believe in the jet lag effect for sure.
Yeah.
I am giving a minor bump to people who play the Scottish instead of the Deere.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is probably just a really, really dumb question, but like, what are you doing for guys who didn't play? Sorry, let me give an example. Like, I think Sergio might be who was some guy, maybe Justin Rose? Yeah, who didn't play the Scottish, but did play the Irish. Like, so they've obviously been in the area, United Kingdom for a while. And I've heard that Justin Rose has over the last couple of weeks been practicing at Royal Birkdale. So that's obviously a kick. But I think people are focused on like Scottish players. But I think that Rose probably deserves just as much of a bump than those guys. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think Scottish versus Deers is the easy comparison that people can make because it's the exact same week. And I think like as long as you're on the continent and getting acclimated
Yeah.
well before the tournament starts, then yeah, like you should get a bump.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. So we've had a lot of questions. I'm going to start getting to some of these here because I think a lot of people are looking maybe for some pivots in this low range. And I think that there are a lot of interesting guys, but it's sort of hard to handicap like where exactly we think ownership is going to be. So I do think a lot of people, we've gotten like 5 different questions about Brian Harman. So let me find him here. He is really cheap this week at 6'6". And playing really well, but he is coming off the John Deere. He did have a 10th there, but 6'6" is just a lot cheaper than we're usually seeing for Harman in some of these better fields. But I mean, what are your thoughts on some of these pivots? I mean, he's 5 to 8%. It seems like if you sort by adjusted round, you can find a lot of guys, whether it's Pat Perez, even Bill Haas really stands out in this regard. Jason Duffner. Some of these guys aren't exactly the best course fits, but that we are seeing some like lower ownerships here. Do you have any like favorite pivots that are is really intriguing you?
Yeah, there's a crop of people. I mean, like as much as I talked up the Scottish people get a bump and the Deer get a minor penalty, there's a trio of guys from the Deer who had pretty good results and I think like have a combination of good pedigree and good fit. Harman, Haas, and Kyle Stanley, I think kind of they're all the same price. And I kind of all lump them into the same category where they're going to be lower on the lower owned end side for sure. Stanley in particular is a pretty good ball striker. You always kind of want to reconcile how much does that matter depending on what his weather draw is. But like all of those guys, just because if nothing else, their Deer results aren't priced in, and they did enough to beat their pre-Deer prices. So that represents the definition of value.
Yeah. Stanley's the guy that's really standing out to me in the model that I built, which is obviously really skewed towards accuracy off the tee and just ball striking in general at these links courses. So Colin, I mean, let's sort of talk about like how to build lineups. I mean, what are your thoughts on like exactly what that means, like what the weather means? Like, is it sort of like a John Deere thing where like you just account for it in your ownership? Like, I'm sure that like we don't want to just completely fade Sergio if we think he's a great play otherwise. But, it's just a thing where, like, if you were going to have 30% Sergio, you bump down to 10 and maybe move Justin Rose in a similar spot up. I mean, when we were actually building lineups after the show, how do you deal with the weather? I saw a strategy earlier that someone was saying that if you're building 3 lineups, you could build one that's on one draw of the weather, another that's on the opposite side of the weather in case it doesn't happen, you get low on guys, and then one where you just sort of blend. I mean, what are your thoughts on actually building lineups after the show?
I mean, I think it's everything that we talked about before. Like all lineup building is a mix of just balancing equity and ownership. And I think there are a bunch of different ways to attack that in different angles. And it's really like whatever you want to go with. I personally like, even weather aside, I can't emphasize enough how top heavy the payout is in the Millionaire Maker. So all the equity is essentially win or go home. And that involves putting together a lot of lineups that are more likely than not to lose. But like that's as long as you can like maximize your risk. Like, come on, like we get 4 shots a year to be a millionaire. Like,
right.
Go big or go home, and just accept high variance.
Yeah. So I mean, let's look at an example of that. If we just lock in a couple guys we like, let's just go like 2 chalk guys, Casey and Adam Scott. We'll build a lineup around them. We can see here that we're getting a lot of chalk here. I mean, Stricker, Phil are a little bit lower owned. It could be single digits. Probably not Sergio and Matt Kuchar, obviously going to be chalk. So this is probably going to be if not the cash game lineup that you see often, it's going to be some combination of a lot of these golfers, and you could add a couple more in that will be really popular. You could probably throw in Matsuyama in there. So if you're looking at Millie Maker lineups, I mean, like What do you think, Colin? I mean, so in our Eagle video that we've been doing, you will go sometimes for like two guys that are sub 1% or sub 3% or whatever. Do you think you could find a guy, let's say like, all right, let me find a guy that's like in my model that I like, all right, 0 to 1%, yeah, like Stuart Sink. Like, is this going to be enough to be contrarian enough in a milli maker, or do you think you're going to need multiple guys below like 3 or 4%?
I don't think you can be contrarian enough in the Millionaire Maker. I know
Okay.
that's not necessarily the gospel truth. That is the way I lean, but just this is the prop to get first out of the 100K or whatever lineups. It is such an improbable thing to win a Millionaire Maker that it's just like this is the same thing where like the human brain can't like really distinguish between million, billion, and trillion because they're all high numbers and a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
Just how far ahead of the curve you need to be to get $1 million is just like my brain can't comprehend like truly how much you have. So I just lean like take like 3 sub 1% guys, or like if you want to go only to make sure that your expensive guys are under 15% or something like that. But cannot emphasize enough how low your ownership needs to be.
Yeah,
That's
that
why
seems.
Matsuyama is unplayable this week, borderline. It's tough.
Yeah, no, that seems to be, I think, like the number one mistake that people have in the Millie Maker is that they just build like a chalky lineup. Like all of their guys are like like double digit ownership, and like even if all of those guys hit, the odds of you winning the Millie are just like you really just hurt yourself by doing that because you need. You need a unique lineup, and that's really hard. And the best thing you can do is for sure, take guys that are lower owned because that gives you a better chance of having a unique lineup. We always talk about this, but we got some questions here, Colin. How much do you want to leave on the table?
I think for the Millionaire Maker, I'm comfortable going down to 48.5, so leaving 1,500 on the table. I think definitely need to be comfortable with leaving at least 1,000 on the table.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that has got to be one of the easiest ways to get a unique lineup too. And I think that might be honestly one of the best ways. Like if you, I've always said that one of the best things you could do as a DFS player is just to be honest with yourself and what you are. Like there's no shame in being a cash player. There's no shame in being a GPP player. Just be honest with what you are with yourself, because then you could actually start really building good lineups and making money. So if you just really have trouble getting off chalk, but you want to enter the Millie Maker, you can play chalk and just leave money on the table, and that'll give you a unique lineup while having some chalk offers. Are you okay with that, Colin? Like if you leave 1,200 on the table, and then that means that you can take some chalkier golfers and maybe do one guy that's under 5% and still have a chance at having a more unique lineup than just filling out your roster with chalky guys.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow to just go so high risk and like saying like, oh my God, like when there's no chalk in lineups, there's none of these high value guys. Like, you're really committed to it. Like you can, but like you need to like.
And they're chalk for a reason. I think that's what everyone has trouble with. Like they're chalk by definition because they're probably superior plays.
Yep.
But it is tough. I mean, it really is hard for people to get off them. So. If you cannot force yourself to swap out a guy for a lower owned pivot, really substituting, a full lineup for, one that has chalk but is leaving about, over 1,000 on the table is going to give you a better chance of having the chalk but having a unique lineup. Getting some questions on some guys, Colin, I'll ask you about here. Lahiri is a guy that we're getting a lot of questions on. I mean, these are just guys that like we're really searching for some contrarian picks at the 6.6 in like the 6K range. So I guess the question is, Colin, like, what are you looking for in a guy this range? Like Stanley obviously is a guy that is in really good form, really good fit. Lahiri actually has better long-term birdie chances. Charles Howe has been playing really well. These are all guys in the 6.6. So you can sort of easily pivot to a lot of these guys. But like, what are you looking here? Are you looking for a guy that actually has like the fit and chops to win, or are you looking for a top 10 finish, or is that a bad way to think about things?
No, I'm looking for, at the flyer end, I'm looking for low ownership, and that's it. I'm looking for something that no one else is going to have. This is the spot where you're going to find someone that's just like, 0 to 2%. And I think golf is just so wildly unpredictable that like you have to embrace that. It was only 2 months ago that Siwoo freaking Kim won,
Kim, yeah.
right? So like the idea, nobody saw that coming. It is always within the realm of possibility. I think all you can do is do something that no one else is doing to put yourself in a spot to have you jump everyone else in the line and just let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, that's a good point. I got a question here. Yeah, ask your questions whether you're watching in Zoom or watching on YouTube. Definitely get your questions in. We'll answer them we'll probably go about 15 minutes here, 10, 15 minutes here. Colin, so what are your thoughts on just like we have this feature here in player models where you can like or unlike players. So like literally you could just take all of, the guys, like the top just 10 ownership guys, get rid of them and then build lineups? Is that leaving too much equity? And if you're in the millie maker, what do you think of that strategy? Someone that had mentioned that.
Yeah, that's a quick and dirty way to just like, yeah, if you want to X out players and say like, I can't play them under any conditions, like, yeah, that'll ensure that, that's kind of an absolutist. Some people still like to have a blend of chalk and contrarian and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And that's really it's almost like a corollary to the question of how big should your player pool be from which you make lineups. Some people really want to spread it around like, 25 golfers or something like that. I think you can make 20 lineups using like 8 or 9 golfers only. It's going to be incredibly high variance, but that's just a matter of, when you eat a lot. So I think that like, I think expanding your pool to like 30 gives you a false sense that you kind of have all your bases covered. And like, that gives you a better chance to have something that hits in like the top 10.
Yeah.
But like, you need to have so many things go right in the first place again that like, no, you're never going to be like diversified enough. It's the illusion of control.
Yeah, yeah. Just all the golfers in the tournament. Some of them that you could say that have, very, very, very small chance of actually getting in the top 5. But the point is that there's are a lot of golfers that do have the capability of doing that. Good question here. And we'll keep on answering these. Thanks for getting these in. Is there any like sort of stat that like, we see a lot of green, but there are an occasional blemishes, red marks that we don't like that like would disqualify a guy that from like how you would want to use him? Like Fleetwood, obviously, a guy that I think is super interesting this week because he's normally not that it's expensive, but he's up at 9.8. He is in really good form. This 11.6 plus minus. Obviously won at this French Open here. Really good showing at the Irish Open. So he's been here. He knows Royal Birkdale. He's actually a member here. Probably a lot of pressure, but he obviously is a good play for a lot of good reasons, in really good form as far as his accuracy marks in the recent term. But if we're looking at long-term metrics, like if it doesn't have to be Fleetwood, but like some of these other guys, like if we're looking at accuracy, whether it's Justin Thomas and his accuracy off the tee just in the long term, any of these guys where it's like just bad enough where you're just like I can't do it.
Probably accuracy. I think when I was going through lineups this week and kind of player red marks, like for some reason, like one of the guys is priced really high right now is Thomas Pieters. And for as much as we love him on our pod, I don't understand why his pricing is here at the time because there's no accuracy to be found. I think with this wind and with the way that this course is set up, I just can't play anybody that has that level of accuracy. The course is just not friendly enough for it.
Yeah, I wonder if part of like the reason that he's priced up a little bit more this week than we would have expected was because he was pretty popular at the Masters and the U.S. Open. The Masters obviously had a good finish, and then the U.S. Open he was popular because he was just coming off of the Masters and the PGA Championship. So I wonder if DraftKings in their formula to set salaries looks at ownership from previous majors or ownership compared to the field at some of the stuff, and that's why he got a bump. But you're right. Yeah, it is definitely an interesting case why he's up there. And there's like a foursome right here that's definitely interesting. Phil, JT, Jason Day, and Peters, guys that aren't exactly accurate. What are your thoughts on putting this week, Colin? We know about accuracy, we know about the wind. Maybe scrambling is going to be somewhat important if it ends up that the wind is sort of throwing balls all over the place, scrambling for pars is going to be fairly important. But what are your thoughts on some of these other metrics, putting and bogey avoidance, stuff like that?
Well, putting is the same as I always think it is. It's blind luck. That's no oversimplification, but I just can't believe that it's going to be anything. I mean, I even looked at like how to play it out. Like in 2008 when they played Royal Birkdale, I just didn't for pops. It's just such a randomness filled like metric. I think you're better off just going driving accuracy. As tempting as it is to look for other tiebreaker metrics, like sometimes you just really can't tell the difference between two players. And so the answer is make two lineups and play them both. And that's the best you can do.
Makes sense. Cool. Looking at some more questions here. Thank you guys for joining us. Pete was unfortunately not able to be on the show, but he did do a Periscope earlier today with some of the DFS goats, Empire Maker, Sawhill, Brandon Adams, a lot of the really good players. A lot of the Thunderdome entries were hanging out and talking some golf. So it's on Pete's Twitter if you want to go check that out. It was definitely an interesting Periscope, interesting conversation. Let's see here. Let's get to some questions. All right, this is a good one here. The stat that's going around right now, Colin, that everyone's talking about, I think I heard it on some other podcast. I think maybe it was Cousin Sal's podcast, was that like 7 of the last 8 Open winners have been 35 years older or older. What are your thoughts on that narrative? Like maybe some potential explanations. I mean, I guess it does make sense. Like if, Link style, some punishing Link's courses, that being a veteran, you just knowing different shots, having creativity on different shots, having the reps is useful in those types of courses and those types of settings. But do you think that's noisy? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm the worst person to ask that kind of question, because like, why does that? I mean, like if anything, like if I had to guess it, it's probably like there's probably some correlation going on there, because Link style favors accuracy to begin with. If you have accuracy, which is distance, the younger guys have more of the distance, and so it's just more of a suited to shot making in general. So it's
that's a good point.
Penalized as much.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's sort of the sample is biased, right? Because the older guys are really only still on tour because they're so accurate. Like they obviously are losing.
It's the survivorship bias.
It's just by nature, like an accuracy course is going to skew older winners than, say, the PGA Championship, the 4th major of the year, which, last year definitely, but, a lot of years definitely skews more distance, which is going to favor the younger guys that have the distance. So that's interesting. Maybe it just really is survivorship bias, where it's just favors accuracy, and those guys just happen to be older. I think the example is that Steve Stricker's 9 to 12%, but I'm seeing a lot of buzz about him, especially coming off the John Deere. Obviously, we don't like that stroke. That he's going to have a disadvantage there, just coming over from the States. But 6'9", just really good form. 50 years old. Is the bloom going to fall off the rose, or are you still on 50-year-old Stricker train here, Colin?
I mean, like I was asking that as early as like April this year, because he was showing no signs of abating. Like he just continues to put up results. If there's anybody that's apparently mysteriously immune to this whole thing, it looks like it may be Stricker. And like if you give him a course that he's pretty much perfect for, then like I can't like just find the bad result. Like you can't look at that thing. So like I have not seen enough to say like, oh no, he can't play. It's not sustainable. Like I think it is. I think he's a perfectly legit play this week.
Yeah. Someone in chat, Clark, said old man team. Yeah, just build a team of all old men. Just go 35. Just unlike everyone that's under 35, and you might win the million. There you go. I had a question here, Kyle. Let me find it here. About Wiesberger. So I think some people are wondering, just what to do with some of these guys that have really good marks that, but lower field scores. So Wiesberger is an example, and I cannot pronounce his name very well. Leiten, I think might be how you pronounce it, but he's really popping in models for some people because of his ability to hit greens from the fairways is really strong. Definitely an accuracy guy. Wiesberger obviously is in the same camp here. Definitely an accuracy guy, but they are playing in weaker fields. They are specifically Euro Tour players. So I mean, what do you deal with them? Because they are popping in models because of their accuracy numbers.
I mean, that's the age-old question. Like, how do you deal with like a college basketball team like who beats everyone in the Ohio Valley Conference by like 30 points, right? Like,
Yeah.
Doing apples to apples to the big boys. Like, I think like even just like glancing at his results. I mean, look at Wiesberger in the majors alone, or like so Sawgrass. There's a 12th at Sawgrass, a 16th at the U.S. Open. I think those are like, if you want like any semblance of like, can he hang with the big boys? Like just the fact that there's no missed cuts going back to February in his game log. Like, I don't care what tour you're playing on. Like,
maybe that's like, good. Yeah.
Or whatever. Then like, yes, I think it's always tough to try to really get apples to apples to tour. But like in my mind, like, yes, Wiesberger's absolutely done enough for me to consider him like a top 25 player.
Yeah, no, I like Wiesberger a lot. He's definitely going to be a guy that I am overexposed to, and at that 5 to 8% ownership. And this is actually what I'm trying to get some exposure to some of these guys in this range. Wiesberger is a guy that has just an awkward salary point here at 7.6. There's just not many guys in that range. Like everyone's going to go down to whether it's Molinari or whether it's Rafa Cabrera-Bello or Stricker, those guys in that range. And people are really going to skip over like the high 7K or go up to Paul Casey at 8.1. So I think Wiesberger at the 6K range or 7.6K range is really interesting for sure. Good question here. Really good question on that note. Colin, if there's a guy that you like, let's say you're building, let's just say 100 lineups just to make the math easy, people can understand. So you're building 100 lineups. There's a guy that's lower owned that you really like, right? Let's say it's Xander. Let's say you like Xander and you see, okay, he's going to be 2 to 4% owned. And let's say you really like him. Let's say, he's value wise or, you really believe his fit or whatever, he's one of the top 10 golfers that you like. If you're building 100 lineups, how do you deal with ownership? Like, do you just go all in and go 25%, or do you say, okay, it's 2 to 4%. So if I go to 10% lineups, I'm still very overweight, but I'm also hedging a little bit. I mean, how do you deal with low-owned golfers and exposures? I have this problem as well. So I'll give my thoughts on it after you, but it's definitely a tough question to figure out what you want to do as far as underweight or overweight and how much so on either side you want to be.
That is entirely how much risk you want to take and how much variance in your results.
Yeah.
I have zero issue putting, if Xander's your guy and you think like he's going to be low owned and he has great equity, and you're going to make 100 lineups, you can put him in all 100. And you're not like you still have so much ground to cover in terms of diversifying your lineups that you're going to be fine. And in fact, like I think the purist in me, just from an expected value standpoint, says like if you were to like come up with a magic formula that calculated your cash probability or like top 10 probability or top 1%, like if you ran that, like you will naturally find that like the top 100 is going to have a single guy in all of them for that exact reason, because that is your belief. And why are you not just trying to maximize like your win probability across all of your lineups? So I have no problem putting him in all 100 lineups, for example.
I guess it really does come down to risk aversion and hedging and how you want to deal with that. So I mean, we talk about in other sports, it's tougher in golf because of the variance. Like, I mean, for example, like the highest implied odds to win the tournament are 6.7 odds. Like no one is likely to win the British Open. I mean, someone's definitely got to win, but like no one is likely to by any means. So it's inherently a volatile sport. So you definitely have to factor that in. But hedging, it always puts you in a precarious situation just because you're low in your EV, especially if you're going for first place, for sure. A lot of questions here about a guy that I don't have a strong opinion on, but seems to be just a darling because of his recent play. Ryan Fox. like I've seen him all over Twitter. I'm seeing all over our chat right here, Colin. Does have some really interesting finishes. Him and Callum, whatever his name is, who finished second at the Scottish Open. If you do look, like the last 6 or 7 winners of the British Open, wherever it was hosted, not necessarily at the Royal Birkdale, but just the Open winners have played at the Scottish Open. So I think people are looking at Fox, looking at Callum and saying, okay, they have top 5 finishes and they've been here. They've been playing links courses. They fit the course well. They've been playing well. They're going to be low owned. They're low salary. These are guys that I'm interested in. So what are your thoughts on Fox? And let me get his Callum Shinkwin. That's his name.
I think that's I think it's easy to see like 2 good results in the last 2 weeks. And yes, his recent form is really good playing in the Euro Tour this week. But this is why we believe in long-term adjusted round. And this is what helps to look at the entire picture. Because if you look at some of these mixed cuts here, see the one that is clear right there is a Roccaforte Open, when normally Ryan Fox is bargain basement territory in the Euro Tour. When he's a mid favorite and is missing the cut, that's the flip side of it being really difficult to try to make apples to apples comparisons across the tour. I think his long-term adjusted round is terrible for that reason, just because he's put up putting up goose eggs on the Euro Tour is just a kiss of death. If you have more than 5 missed cuts, I just pick you as a legit option to begin with. There's lots of other guys that I prefer. You have legit PGA guys. Would you really give me Daniel Berger over Ryan Fox, right? Or Fox over Daniel Berger at the same price? No, not even close.
Yeah. I legitimately think people are going to do that just because they're going to look at these metrics.
It makes you feel smart. I picked a non-household name and look who's done well in the Euro Tour. No one's paying attention. Well, you also have to pay attention to the entire body of results. And spoiler alert, they're not great for Ryan Fox.
So are you saying that he's the hipster play of the British Open?
Yeah, that is fancy play syndrome incarnate.
Callum in the same deal. I mean, obviously not great here.
Yeah, same. Yep, I'm gonna go on the exact same rant. So just pretend I was saying Callum instead of Ryan for that whole rant.
I saw this in his chart earlier, and I meant to go look it up because I wanted to talk about it. But I wonder how you get disqualified 2 weeks in a row. That's impressive, right?
I think you have to punch a tournament official or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to get disqualified. I can't remember. One of the PGA guys got disqualified for signing the wrong scorecard because someone put the wrong one in front of his face or something like that. Maybe it was Bryson. I can't remember who exactly it was a couple weeks ago, but
yeah, I saw someone got DQ. It might have been Wesley or some other guy, maybe Wesley Bryan, maybe it was Bryson. One of those guys. Or no, Grayson Murray. I bet it was. Yeah, I think he got disqualified, didn't he? Something like that.
Yeah, it might have been Grayson. I can't remember.
Ali or one of those. I don't know.
Yeah, it could have been one for sure. Awesome. We'll do just a couple more questions to get out of here. We are running out of time. Question of who are some guys that are not playing really well lately, but have good long-term form that we think might bounce back. So we can do this by going into the models. We can look at form differential, and we'll sort by just around a high positive number as opposed to negative number means that these guys have a high long-term adjusted round score or a good long-term adjusted score and a bad recent adjusted score. So obviously just DJ and Jason Day are the prime examples. These are guys that are talented golfers, but have been playing poorly of late. So of these guys that you can see on my screen, some of them aren't necessarily household names, but I mean, we can talk about some of them. Rory, or even a guy like Tyrell Hatton, who we do like quite a bit on this podcast, but hasn't been playing well, but is in that interesting 8K. He's probably going to be 2% owned because he's right next to Casey. What are your thoughts on some of these guys that have a chance to bounce back?
I mean, that's always the thing of pedigree versus, recent form. And is there a reason? Why is their recent form so bad? I think with DJ and Day, their issues are so mental to begin with that I think this one's out of the realm of being purely data driven. Mm-hmm. And there's something else going on there. And there's just too much uncertainty. There's too much that like data alone doesn't have a great way of dealing with. And like, yeah, it's too much unknown for my tastes.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. And it's also like the thing that, because I was looking at this question earlier, one of the harder things about this is that, like in a perfect world, if you're going to look for an edge in this situation, you would sort by this form differential, and then you would go here and you would see that the long-term driving accuracy, which I think is probably the most important metric this week, would be just a sea of green. Like we would see that there are accuracy guys that for some reason, whether it's a putter that really hasn't been hot or whatever it might be, they've sucked lately. Unfortunately, all the guys, really with the exception of maybe Ryan Moore, who, I guess might be a guy that, even though, these are not exactly great, finishes here, he did have that top 10 of the Masters. So maybe he's the guy at 1% or less than you throw in, a lineup. But really, these guys just aren't accuracy guys. So I'm sort of skeptical of this narrative, Colin.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. Just for all the reasons you outlined, like I agree with all of that 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. Just going through these questions. Appreciate you guys asking these and coming to hang out with us for sure. Let's see here. Got some questions about Jason Dufner. I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, so let me actually ask this a different way, Colin. Driving distance. What are you doing with guys who have distance, and even guys who have Gary Woodland, who's been accurate, but typically not an accurate guy, or definitely not a good putter. What are you doing with guys that do have distance? Do you think it's a negative this week, or do you think that if they're accurate and long, that's fine?
I mean, like distance and accuracy are always like so correlated to begin with that like it's tough to really separate the two.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's like it's not so much like distance itself is bad. It's just like if you're high distance, you're usually low accuracy. So just to simplify it, I just look at accuracy only and recognize that like the guys that you're picking, like there's like you're going to be inherently picking low distance guys, and that's why you're going to see that correlation.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing, but I think it's so accuracy off the tee is so important. And there's just really not many guys that are good at both. So you can find that Venn diagram and great, but there might be like two guys in the world that are like really elite at both. So good luck with that. Colin, of Fantasy Labs wanted me to point this out here, that if we go down to Francesco Molinari, we look at his odds to win 1.2%, and then we go up just a smidge. Where is it? Matthew Fitzpatrick, which is Sean's boy. He's just the Fitzpatrick.
I didn't even see that question coming when I saw like that price range. I knew this shit. Like, oh, I have been blindsided. I need to get sharper for these things. For sure.
Matthew Fitzpatrick. 1.3%. He is in like the perfect weather draw. He is playing super early. Is there anything you'd like to say about Fitzpatrick?
No, next question.
Fitzpatrick is like the most tilting guy. I mean, obviously miscuts the Scotch, but the one that was like so killer, what was it? Was it the Heritage? No, what was the one that he just killed us all? Because the one in South Carolina was
right?
Harbour Town. Yeah.
South Carolina. It's his favorite course ever, and everyone's hyped about it.
He has like towels with he has like pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, so we're gonna end it here. I do want to just give some. We can pick some guys, Colin. Maybe give some winners. That we don't have Pete. We picked winners last time, but now that he's out, we can redo it.
Yeah, I'm already locked in with my Patrick Reed Euro narrative. That Superman is showing up for sure. Let's go. Oh man, if I want to pick up, what would be the funnest winner to pick? Probably the triple secret reverse pivot. No one else expected. Brooks Koepka is going to win 2 majors.
2 majors in a row.
The guy who hates. Arguably the guy that hates watching golf, the only one that hates watching golf more than I do. Winning majors.
I
I
love it.
would love it. Like he's the anti-hero, not that we need, but that we deserve.
I love it. Yeah, Brooks just ripped off 2 majors in a row, like in Ricky's face. Like Ricky the Chalk and Brooks just rips 2 in a row.
Oh yeah.
That would be the best. Yeah, I mean Brooks like isn't a bad play. Like he's in good
No,
form.
he's not. That's the
Yeah,
best part.
yeah, and he is like a brilliant tee time. Like he's early in the morning Thursday. Like he's exactly what you want. In the weird price range, like right above Adam Scott, right below Ricky at 9.2. So I mean, yeah, he really is like he's like an ideal million maker golfer, honestly.
Yes,
But people don't want to roster him because like they think, what are the odds that he can win 2 majors in a row? I don't want to roster him.
Yep, exactly.
The guy, like if I'm sort of looking here, just like guys that I'm really in, like I'm all over Justin Rose. Maybe that's a mistake. Do you think he's going to be too chalky?
I don't think he's going to be no. Like for as much as like I thought people would be harping on his like amateur narrative a lot more than they are. No, I don't think he's going to be that chalky. I think he's very viable in the middle.
Yeah. I don't even care about the amateur narrative. I mean, it's whatever. I just think that he's in good form. Like he's definitely a ball striker. He can hit greens. He's accurate off the tee. He can, move down a club and definitely hit some fairways. And yeah, I mean, he's been practicing at Royal Birkdale, semi-moderate ownership, 10-3, sort of in a weird price point here between, Sergio and Ricky. So Justin Rose, if we're sort of picking guys that I'm going to be most overexposed to, it's probably Rose. Cool. But let's pick a winner under 7K. Let's just do this and then we'll end it here.
All right. Who do I want under 7K? Under 7K?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Who do you want that is 7K?
Like, no, let's do the guy who's been resurgent, has not gotten his respect yet, coming back from injury, Pat Perez.
Pat Perez. Yeah, no, so actually he might be a guy that you're interested in because he's the here he is. Yeah, he's in this list here that long-term adjusted round view sort. He has been not great.
He's going to be under 3% owned for sure. He's going to give you all the leverage that you want. Like, it's going to be so good.
He might be under like 1%.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I feel like I need to go super contrarian here. I was going to pick 50-year-old Steve Stricker to win, but I feel like I need to be a little.
No, yeah, come on, we can go deeper. Than we've talked about it enough. Come on, give us a hot take.
Oh gosh, let's see here. Oh, I'm going down the list. Man, I don't know. These guys. This is quite a list of guys here that can. Like the problem is like I think that a lot of these guys can do well. Obviously, I'm going to roster them. Like Kyle Stanley, I really love. Brian Harman, I do like quite a bit, but winning it is a different question. RCB is chalk. Ross Fisher. Boom. Here we go.
Oh, that is such a good pick. Oh, that is a pick. Oh, home country and everything. Excellent. That's a perfect pick.
You like you some Ross Fisher, don't you, Colin?
I do love me some Ross Fisher. Yep.
Yeah. If you're looking for accuracy, guys, definitely fits the mold. If he could just get his putting into gear, he's going to be good. All right, Colin, I think we're going to end it here. I guess lock is in a couple of hours, so let's go build some lineups.
Yeah, everybody, one of us go better win $1 million.
Yep. I mean, if it's not you, it's probably going to be you or me. But if it's not,
I think so. We are clearly the odds-on favorite. That's not really in debate.
Right. Yeah, if we're handicapping it for sure. But if it's not us, Colin, maybe people in the chat. That would be. Nice
I would settle for someone in chat winning $1 million. That would be okay by me.
Yeah, we did have a guy, a sub, win 100K in baseball last night, so that was good. So we're on a hot streak. 100K last night in baseball.
Keep momentum going.
1 million in golf. So yeah, wherever you're playing, DK, FanDuel, whatever. Good luck this week, and we'll talk to you guys next week.